to the Profit by Design podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Sabrina Starling, the business psychologist and the author of the How to Hire the Best series, as well as the 4-Week Vacation. And I know that as you are listening in our audience, you've read a lot of business books, and they've been really helpful to you in growing your business. And from time to time, I have some of you reaching out asking me about the process of writing a book and even how it's helped me grow my business. And so today I thought it would be fun to kind of pull back the curtain, and really bring on a guest who can help you understand what goes into writing a book and doing it intentionally with profit by design in mind. So if you're going to write a book that supports your business and client acquisition, let's do it in a way that really sets you up for success and what you want to achieve from the start. So my guest today is Jeremy Jones. He's a military veteran, entrepreneur, and author. As the founder and CEO of Jones Media Publishing, he's helped countless authors write, publish, and promote their books. With his expertise in sales and marketing, Jeremy is also a renowned leader, mentor, and coach. He's the creator of the Authority Coach Blueprint author coaching program, which has empowered aspiring authors to achieve their dreams. In addition, Jeremy hosts the podcast Ideas and Impact and is the driving force behind authoritycoach.com. His dedication, professionalism, and commitment to success make him a highly sought-after keynote speaker in the industry. So, Jeremy, welcome to the Profit by Design podcast.
Dr. Sabrina, it's an honor to be here. Thanks for having me.
Sure. So I want to hear a little bit about your journey, Jeremy, as you got started in your business. What inspired you?
Yeah, so I guess it went back to when I was first initially getting my business up and going. I was getting referrals. I was constantly, trying to bring in new clients. And there was always this issue of credibility. And I think a lot of business people have to do with that, especially going to the cold market. Referrals are one thing. They're referred by a third-party person. And what I found was when I got to the point where I had enough expertise, I had some case studies of a few people that I've really helped and get some great results, I authored a book, and I found it really transformed the credibility, the trust, the ability to get in front of audiences and speak, to get on more podcasts. It opened up doors to get on more podcasts. And what it did was it created another source of a warm audience that could bring in new clients. And so that's what I found myself doing, is finding other vehicles to create a warm audience to acquire new clients. And I found a book was a great vehicle to be able to do that. And then a few years ago, I built after helping a few authors to get their books up and going and marketed and promoted successfully, basically built an entire process around it so I could help someone from start to finish with our team and with the process that I developed.
Yeah, I know I hear a lot of aspiring authors say, I have a book in me, or I want to write a book. In your experience, what are some of the biggest hurdles to overcome internally to just get to the point and say, I'm doing this, I'm moving this forward?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I think a lot of first-time authors especially get really excited about the idea of writing a book because they usually fall into a couple of categories. Number one, they want to help people. They want to contribute to people in some way by putting their knowledge, their expertise, what they know, into a book so that it can reach a broader audience. And then the second one is they want to further their credibility for their business. They have a model, they have a process, they've helped people in some way, and they want to use that as a tool to help them to get new clients. But what I find a lot of people do is they get excited or inspired about a concept or an idea about their book. They sit down at their computer, they open up a Word document, they start, the momentum of writing gets really exciting to write out some initial ideas, and then you get stuck. You get stuck somewhere along the process. The example I always like to give is similar to building a custom home. You can get really excited about building a custom home, and a home isn't like an asset. Like a book is like an asset. It can be a very valuable asset for your business. And the one thing you don't do when you build a custom home is just go down to the lumber yard, grab some materials, go throw it on the ground and start hammering away and start putting molding on the stuff you hammered away and do things in the wrong order. And that's a lot of times what
Mhm.
happens with authoring a book is you get excited about a story or you get excited about a result you got for a client and you just start hammering away on the keyboard. And then you get stuck. And then you go back and revise what you have. And what we've done, and the reason we call it our process is a blueprint, and I'm happy to share with you a bit about that, is we map it out just like a blueprint, like an architect would architect out where the rooms go. And the part about a house that's required that's not fun is where the bathrooms are. And so there's certain things about a book,
Mhm.
similar to like the bathrooms kind of got to be in the house. You got to plan for that. And so that's what we do is blueprint out that process. So that way, when the author is writing, or we have a process with ghostwriting as well, is it takes all that overwhelm out of that process. It takes all of the time intensiveness that it would take out of hammering away for 3 months, getting stuck, and then having a builder come in and make all these repairs. That's why editing it tends to be so extensive and so expensive, because they're undoing a lot of the things that happen with no plan and with no blueprint.
Boy, do I relate. You just, as you started describing that process, you took me right back to my very first book
Yeah.
and the How to Hire the Best series. And I remember like sitting down, so excited at my computer, knocking
Mm,
things out. And I'd been writing a blog for years. So I had
yeah.
blog posts and I was like, oh, I can just pull all this together and
Yeah.
put it in order. And then I got lost. Like I got lost in my own stuff
It's
and
very
I
common.
couldn't
Yeah.
figure out how to find my way through. And
Uh-huh.
so I have, after writing multiple books over the years, I can really vouch for the value of having a blueprint and a guide
Mhm.
and someone who says, okay, let's work on this piece and then you're going to work on this piece. And what you said about the editing process and why it is so expensive and intensive is because there was a lack of a blueprint. So my
Mhm.
fourth book that I've written, I felt like I don't even remember writing it. It was just I did it and it was done.
Yeah.
And there was work involved, but it flowed and it was not like heavy lifting. And I think a lot of what made it easier is having a blueprint and just knowing these are the pieces, this is the process. Don't do this part because you haven't done that part. And when you do that other part first, it makes everything better. So
Yeah.
talk to us. You said you'd be happy to share a little bit about your
Yeah, sure.
process and the blueprint. Tell us about that. What's that involve?
Yeah, so we basically broken it down into 3 primary phases. So the first phase is, the late Stephen Covey said it best in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Begin with the end in mind. And I always
Mm,
encourage authors to do that because they come up with a concept or an idea for a book, and then all of a sudden it's in this silo. You have your business and then you have your book. And what we really try to do is to find alignment with the two. Where are there overlap areas? Where can we find alignment that your ideal reader ideally should be pretty close to who your ideal client would be if you're using this for a business book and a business tool. So we want to find that alignment there, and that's where the foundation of the book should be. And so that's phase one of the process is the overall blueprint and the plan. Where is this book going? If this book was already existing and already in place, how would I utilize it? We have some people that want to speak and they want to use books as a tool to speak. Well, we did this just to give you one quick example, and then we'll go to phase two. We had one author that his goal was to speak. He wanted to go and speak to audiences, go to speak to companies, and he had a book draft that was already somewhat written. So I said, "All right, let's look at your foundation and see what you have here." We went in, and nothing in his book mentioned anything about an example he gave while he was speaking. It didn't say anything about his speaking. And a lot of times with corporate events and things like that, meeting organizers will, they'll search on Amazon, they'll find a book, they'll get it, and they're looking for clues. Does this person have to demonstrate their expertise? Can they speak in front of an audience, and will they make us look good? And if you don't demonstrate that in some way in your book, then the meeting organizer is less likely then to reach out to the author and say, "Hey, would you like to speak at our event?" or something like that. So there's certain things we can do, like a chess master will think few moves ahead. That when
yeah.
because we've been through this with more than 200 authors through this exact process. There's certain things we can do based on where you want to be, beginning with the end in mind. We can look at it almost like a chess master would look at few steps ahead to help our
Mhm.
authors to plan that in. So that's phase one, and then that helps, I mean, dramatically reduce the time it takes to write book contents. Or if you have a ghostwriter, they have everything they need so that when they produce the contents, it meets the expectations of the author. Some people will send stuff to a ghostwriter and they go, wow, this doesn't sound like my voice. This isn't really my content. It just doesn't match. And that's the reason why, is they don't have something to match it to. Phase two is once we have a book that's been edited and done. Phase two is the production of the book. So now we can package. Now that we have that, the material and the blueprint and the contents, now we can package it. So what my company does is takes all the frustration and the time intensiveness that goes into finding a designer, finding a layout person, getting all these creative people, which creative people are like cats, like trying to herd cats, like they're very difficult to communicate with. And so that can be very, very complicated and time consuming for business people. So we take all the headache out of that. We do all done for you, book cover design, layout, Amazon Kindle formatting. So it's all by top-notch publishing house standards. And a lot of times that's where a lot of authors fall down, is their book looks self-published. And if you're trying to get in front of audiences and, bring your book to meeting organizers and things like that, it's got to look really, really good by publishing standards. So we hit that mark with having a high quality publishing house standard. The author also keeps 100% of the intellectual property rights, which is also really important. And then once we finalize the book, we go into phase three, which is the book release and the book launch. And that component is also very, very important. And knowing how the algorithm works on Amazon with keywords and categories and the metadata for your book and getting it launched properly, we have a 4-week strategy that we outline that our authors can just basically follow a checklist and a blueprint to launch their book and then market it so that your book can be found when people are looking for books in that category or that keyword, the keywords for your book, that it's more likely that book will come up based on what people are searching for. So that's kind of a high level of the blueprint.
Yeah. Wow. There's so much value in each of those phases that you laid out, because as soon as you said, professional design for the cover, I flashed back to my first book that I designed the cover. Did not look professional and has not gotten me any speaking engagements. And I'm not sure it got me any clients. So, and that was a lot of work. But then I was recalling every time I've worked with different people at the point of publishing and going on to Amazon, and that there is so much to know in that process. That is not something that an author should try to learn on their own and figure out and do on their own. There's so many pitfalls. So I think one of the myths that I encounter is, I'm going to write a book and it's going to make me rich. And I want to break this down, because I would love your opinion on this too, but in my opinion,
yeah, sure, I'd be happy to.
Book sales themselves, not going to make me rich. That's not the path. It really is what you said is, what is your intention for this book? How does it serve the business, or something that you're trying to accomplish in your life? And then you want to write the book with that end goal in mind. So in my experience, the books have brought us clients. They've created speaking opportunities, podcast guesting opportunities for me. So a lot of visibility that has helped us grow the business. What is your experience with just the actual book sales, and is that a path to success for people?
Yeah, for sure. So expecting a book in the first year to make hundreds of thousands of dollars is definitely not realistic. I like to look at books also like an asset, and they're good to look at it like an asset, because the income you get from Amazon, they call it a royalty. And if you think of what a royalty check is, it's that there is some sort of intellectual property asset that kicks off cash to the person that creates it. So if we look at it in that way, does a book need to make $100,000 in profit in order for it to be an intellectual property asset? Not necessarily. Because if you think about it, when you sell a book on Amazon, a paperback book, an average, if you price it correctly and if you have all the pieces in place, you should make about $4, $5, or $6 per paperback book that's sold on Amazon. Okay. So if you put a plan into place and you don't need to sell, let's just say you don't need to sell 100,000 books, but let's say you sell 20 a day. any author that has a good idea for a book can say, oh, well, that's realistic, 20 books a day. And I try to bring people down to kind of like a realistic point, 20 books a day. So if you get Amazon advertising in place, you get a good book marketing plan in place, it's pretty realistic that an author could sell 20 books a day. Well, 20 book sales a day times $5, let's say average for easy math purposes, $5 profit per day times 20 books a day is $100 a day in profit. Times 30 days in a month, so $100 a day times 30 days in a month is $3,000 in royalty profit from an asset that's on Amazon. $3,000 a month is not a very impressive full-time income. However, think about how much money you'd need to have in the bank to get interest of $3,000 a month. It's an enormous amount of money. Enormous. And so if you look at a book like an intellectual property royalty asset, like you'd produce music or you'd produce anything where it's a royalty asset, to be able to create that sort of royalty income every month needs to be an enormous amount of money for $3,000 a month. So there's two ways to profit from a book. And you mentioned it, there's a front end profit and then there's a back end profit. So if we have a realistic expectation of what that front end royalty profit is, let's just call it a starting point, getting your book with proper marketing, proper optimization, and a good quality book, $3,000 a month in profit. Like I said, a full-time income, not that impressive, but an intellectual property asset for a cash flow is very, very good. But then also you have the back end. So if you get your book to, 20 book sales a day times 30 days in a month, that's 600 potential customers for your business every single month. So if you have Amazon advertising running, that kicks off 600 new customers for your business every single month, it's a pretty good chance, it's just putting the odds in our favor, it's a pretty good chance that out of 600 people a month, a few of them will inquire about your coaching, your consulting, if you're an attorney, your law office. Like we've worked with a lot of attorneys as well. There's a percentage of those people that will want further help and further support. So you're just putting your odds in your favor. You'll have front-end profits with that royalty income and then back-end profits from your business. So that's the way I look at it.
That I've never heard it broken down from that perspective. And I love what you just said about thinking of it as an asset and a royalty producing asset. Because you're right, it would take thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in the bank to produce that kind of
really would.
What we would call passive income from
Right.
investment over time. So what about the business owner who is inspired to write a book, but it has nothing to do with the business? Like maybe it is a fiction book, or maybe it's about a life event that they've gone through, but it doesn't have a clear connection to the business. What advice would you give there?
Yeah, I would make any attempt that I can to create something on the back end. So we've had some authors that have created a monthly membership. So like as an example, let's say you are a business that has some sort of business. You've been through a life-changing event and it's very disconnected from the business itself. Imagine if someone was to read that book and then they want some sort of additional resources, support, something. It's possible that you could create an online digital product that really wouldn't even create any of your time, an informational course or a product or something that you could sell on the back end. So let's go back to the front end and back end example again. And this, we'll talk about nonfiction first, then I'll touch on fiction as well.
Okay.
So in the nonfiction example, this is education, information, history about you, something that's real world stuff. If you could profit some way on the back end by creating intellectual property, again, an online course or something, out of those 600 people that would purchase your book in a month, again, there's a percentage of those people that would want an elevated level of service, an elevated level of information. Someone that pays $1 for something is willing to pay more for more education, more information on the topic. So that's where we're putting the odds in our favor there. So that's nonfiction. Any questions there? And then I can touch on fiction.
No, I think that. Are
Yeah.
you still there?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm having a little bit of a computer glitch here. Okay.
Okay.
Right. I think we're okay. I think you've covered that. And that gives a clear path. And I just want to share that when I wrote the How to Hire the Best series, I created an online course and I ran it live for a number of years, and then I decided, you know what, I want to turn this into an offering, an evergreen offering.
Yeah.
And so now we're in our second update to the course where we're updating the videos, and I've brought on a team member who helps me with the Q&As. And so I show up once a month to do a Q&A with it, and it has
Yeah.
been we've helped a lot of people, we've reached a lot of people, brought in a lot of clients to the business, but it's not been something that has consumed a lot of my time. So I think what you're suggesting is very doable.
Yep. So if there's something else you can offer them that would be an elevated level of information on the topic, that's what I would go to first. So you don't need to create an entire business around that, because when you author a book, whether you like it or not, that's a business. It's income, it's taxable income. That's a business. So if you don't have an existing business, congratulations, you have now a new business. You have your author business, right? So you might as well, if there's a way to leverage that asset you have, is to create something on the back end, I think that would be a good idea. So let's go on the topic of the fiction author. Now, fiction is a very, people consume fiction like crazy on Amazon. It's a great niche to get into. It is very competitive, but it's a great niche to get into. So I'd recommend to optimize the book properly on Amazon. Amazon advertising works excellent for fiction books. So you can drive book sales through Amazon's advertising platform. The biggest suggestion I would have for someone that's writing a fiction book is to build an email list. And the reason for that is if
Mhm.
you can take book number one and your readers capture a percentage of them that want to know more about book two, book three, book four, is that you can release a series of books. And when you get a customer on Amazon, it's not your customer. It's actually Amazon's customer, because you know this, Dr. Sabrina, you don't get that information, right?
No.
Hey, congratulations, Mary just purchased your book. You don't get any of that. So what we want to do is inside the book is have some sort of incentivization to incentivize someone to go to a website, put in your name and your email to be subscribed to, let's say, notifications for new books that are coming out in this category. Someone would subscribe on a list. You build up a list over time. Let's say the first year you only promote book one. Well, book year
Mm.
two, now you've got a list of, let's say, 500 or 1,000 people you can build on to start announcing book two. And that's what I would do, is build basically a profile of fiction books over time, and they will start to build on each other. And that's what I would
Yeah.
do to build a portfolio of books if I was a fiction author.
Yeah, I can certainly connect with that as an avid reader of fiction. When I stumble upon a good author, I'm like, oh, do they have other books? And then I
And
go
you,
looking,
yep,
and I
you start reading
binge, and
more
I
of
will
them.
read.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'll read everything, and then I'll want to know if they have books coming out. I will sign up for those lists. And
Yep.
do you, in your experience, does it work the same way with nonfiction? I mean, because
Oh,
that
for
has been
sure.
my strategy: is every book I've written, give people some reason to subscribe to something so that I can build a relationship with them, because you're absolutely right. I have no idea who purchases my books on
Yep.
Amazon.
Yep. Yeah, it works the same. With the nonfiction books, I recommend a complementary resource that it is in full alignment with your book topic. So, as an
Yeah.
example, we had an author we published that was a fitness and nutrition coach. And one of the things that he recommends for people is to go away from sweets and go to something like fruit smoothies. In his book, he talked about smoothies, he talked about the benefits of smoothies, and he got people like excited about making smoothies. Well, how can you add value to a reader? By saving them time to going out and searching out their own smoothie recipes. So he
Yeah.
created a resource that we helped him create on his top 10 easy to make smoothie recipes. They would go to his website, they put in their name, their email, they get the recipes for free. So it's a valuable resource for them. Now they're a part of his email list. Now he can talk to them about his coaching program, other books he has coming out, other offerings that he has by being a part of that email list.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. So it
Uh-huh.
needs to be something that's complementary. And the
Yep.
other key word that I heard you say is it creates ease. So ease and
Yes.
convenience. And I've learned this through the School of Hard Knocks. Don't
Mhm.
give people something extra that requires more work for them to do,
That's
because
right.
yes, that may further them down their path, but none of us want more work. We
Yeah,
want something that's going to make our lives easier and make something convenient. So
that's a great
I,
point.
I wanted to give you the opportunity to share a bit about if someone wants to work with you, how
Mm.
they might work with you. And you mentioned there's a coaching program, and you also mentioned ghostwriting. And I think those are two different things. So would you kind of walk us through what that might look like?
Yeah, for sure. So we have a free guide for anyone that's thinking about, authoring a book. It's a combination of a guide and a case study. So we recently put together a case study because we've been through this process so many times. We want to document, here are the different phases in the process that we go through, a bit about Amazon advertising and how that works. So there's a new guide that we put together. And so anyone that's kind of kicking around the idea of writing a book, or maybe they've even started the process of writing a book and they want it to be as successful as possible, if you go to authoritycoach.com, you can get that publishing and launch guide. There's also a case study there, and it'll walk you right through it. Also, we send out regular emails and updates of workshops we do, information we have, and you'll get updates about my podcast as well. But authoritycoach.com, you can get that free guide there.
Awesome. That's excellent. So thank you so much for
Mhm.
offering that. And your website is authoritycoach.com, correct?
That's right, authoritycoach.com.
Okay. Well, Jeremy, thank you so much for being here with us today. As we close out, if you could share with us the most impactful book that you've read in the last year. I think that'd be really interesting for our audience.
Oh gosh, it's funny because I see it on your bookshelf. So Mike McAllowitz, Fix This Next, is
Yes.
outstanding. Yeah, I've read I think all of his books, and I really enjoyed that one. I'd say the most impactful in the last few years is definitely Profit First, and that's what led me to Fix This Next. And that's an excellent book.
Yeah, I agree. Both of those are very impactful books. When I encountered Mike McAllowitz, the book I encountered him with was The Pumpkin Plan, and
I love that
I was
book.
like, oh gosh, this is excellent. And so Mike is a great example of someone who writes to his audience, and he
That's
takes
right.
one problem, not 20,
That's
one
right.
problem.
Yep.
And he creates a simple solution. And I think, when we think about writing nonfiction business books, he's a great example to follow. So,
Yep.
oh, go ahead, Jeremy.
And I was gonna say he's a great model of creating a complementary resource as well, because that's how I got in his email list. That's how I learned about his other books. Yeah, he's a great example of a business author that does what he says, serves his audience, provides all sorts of value. He's an excellent model of that, and I really enjoy his work for sure.
And I know him personally, and I want to just say that he works very hard.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's not like he just produces these books and goes off and speaks and lives the good life.
Oh yeah.
I've seen over the years how he has built he strives to build real relationships with his readers, and he stays in touch, and
Mhm.
he wants to know how they're doing. And I think that's a great example to all of us for how we can use our books as a way to be introduced to people, but then build a relationship down the road.
Yep,
So,
that's right.
Jeremy, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank
And
you.
I look forward to hearing more from you. And hopefully, those of you listening, if you have a book in mind, maybe this episode has given you that little push that you need to get out there and make it happen.